Bloke walks into a pub, right, with a dog under his arm, puts us down on the bar, goes and sits down. As the dog turns round,
these aren't entry wounds, more like teeth marks.
Nestling itself between a rich political, literary work and a Cheyenne Native American military society of the same name, Neil Marshall's 2002 film Dog Soldiers may first appear kitsch in comparison. However, underneath its facade of macho soldiers, buff werewolves, blood, and guts, the film hides some interesting debates. Despite almost sparking a sequel, the film has always found itself somewhat of a cult hit, down to its genre and, well, the werewolves, who are rarely taken particularly seriously in cinema. But at the same time our lost macho soldiers are being hunted by an invisible, animalistic enemy out in the wilderness, somewhat reminiscent of Predator, they're also confronted by the internal peril of the human condition. Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film and Comics Explained, and as requested, today we're going to be exploring Dog Soldiers. Our cast of characters come into three clear groups. The troop undergoing their training session in the Scottish Highlands are the key squad, consisting of Sergeant Wells and Privates Cooper, Witherspoon, Bruce, Terry, and Joe, each of whom has a notably different persona, from moralistic, lad, to war fetishist. At the same time, Special Ops Unit hides in the shadows, watching over our unit's training, headed by Captain Ryan, who holds a secret. And finally, we have Megan, the only notable female character, who turns out to be more than just the zoologist she claims to be.
Do you have any idea what kind of luck you had running into me out there tonight?
I thought you ran into us.
The moment we enter the world of Dog Soldiers, it immediately pushes its R rating, with two campers getting steamy before both being torn apart by some kind of snarling intruder. Cutting to 2 hours earlier, we see Private Cooper undergoing a training test for a Special Ops unit. Confronted by Captain Ryan with one final task, killing a dog for seemingly no reason, Cooper refuses, resulting in him failing the test. Regardless, the cold-hearted Ryan still murders the German Shepherd. 4 weeks later, Cooper is back with the squad and has been deployed for a training exercise, but unbeknownst to them, as they trek through the woods, Captain Ryan watches over them. Resting at a camp, the group bond, with the usual boyish bravado being passed around until Sergeant Wells cuts through the noise, recalling the memory of an old squad mate blown up by a landmine. With that, a sheep that's been torn apart falls from the sky onto their camp, spelling the worst for them. While the werewolves and dog soldiers slowly creep their way further and further into the frame until their full body reveals near the film's end, their bodies remain either wholly or partially hidden for the majority of the film. This pushes the narrative trajectory away from your average military flick, shifting it inwards, primarily seen through the film's early sequences, where we focus on the characters as individuals, learning and understanding their differences as people, despite being unified as privates in the military. And the focus on character here is significant, given that military institutions seek to stamp out individuality. Thus, by ensuring the enemy stays in the shadows, we focus on understanding the varying shades of humanity found within each individual within the group. A great example of this comes when our characters chat around the campfire, talking about their fears.
What about you, Coop?
Spiders. And women. And spider women.
Here, the group's answers vary incredibly. Bruce explains he's scared of the self-destructive nature of the human condition, sounding a lot like me, while Spoon fears castration, Joe fears a penalty shootout, Terry jokingly fears watching a penalty shootout with Joe, Cooper fears spiders and women, and Wells fears the thought of never seeing his wife again. These moments are crucial as they set up the underlying conflict that drives the narrative. As they alternate watch in a Predator-esque sequence, Captain Ryan is ambushed by a beast. The next morning, the shaken squad come across the captain and his deceased team, with Ryan screaming,
"There was only supposed to be one,"
and that they tore his squad mates apart in front of his eyes, leaving us guessing who. The squad freak out and try and find a way out of the woods, but the monsters tail them. One makes short work of Bruce and slices Sergeant Wells open, spilling his guts out, before the group stumble across a jeep driven by Megan, who takes them to a farmhouse. Reconvening, they plan to speed out of the woods and get the sergeant to hospital, but the car is destroyed as Megan explains the monsters are no ordinary enemy, but lycanthropes, werewolves. Cooper begins interrogating Ryan, probing why a special ops unit was watching over their training session. But before he can say anything, the power goes out and the wolves lay siege on the house as Ryan succumbs to his lichen wounds and turns into a werewolf. With the cars destroyed and attacks from outside and within that see both their ammo and numbers dwindling, Megan reveals that the house they're in belongs to a family of werewolves, a family which she is now a part of, a statement that rewards her with a bullet between the eyes. Cooper, Spoon and Wells hold out against the pack and a newly turned Ryan, but Spoon dies, forcing Wells to sacrifice himself to save Cooper, who stumbles across the silver dagger seen at the start and stabs it into Ryan's chest, spelling his end. Stepping out into the bright dawn, Cooper escapes back into the world, which begs the question, why was he the only one to survive? Within the campfire conversation at the very start, we're presented with many types of masculinity forming under the general macho icon of being a soldier. From fearing oneself, fearing losing one's lover, and fearing sports to fearing women and becoming impotent, we're already bombarded with huge debates on masculinity, despite being a brief 15 minutes into the film. As the minutes rack up, Dog Soldiers doubles down on these divides, mainly through the deaths of each character. Bruce is the first to go, accidentally ending his own life while trying to outrun a werewolf, poignantly reflective of the fear he has of the self-destructive nature of the human condition. Terry and Spoon consistently shout masculine bravado throughout the film.
Balls of British steel.
And both are brutalized in moments of violent glory, where they claim power over the werewolves, despite being powerless. Similarly, Joe dies being the brave soldier who ventures out alone in the hope of saving his entire squad, with bravery being traditionally considered a masculine trait. While these macho personas are generally held up by these characters throughout the entire film, there are some cracks that appear every now and then, the most notable being Terry vomiting from fear when first being assaulted by the werewolves. But throughout these masculine shows, perhaps it's no surprise that these characters all succumb to the werewolves before Wells and Cooper, both of whom show far more fragility. From the first time we see Cooper, we see him rejecting the kill-them-all hyper-masculinity of the military by refusing to kill without reason. Similarly, Wells' most memorable early moment is revealing his love for his wife, and his broken heart upon losing a soldier from his unit many years ago. Of course, both Cooper and Wells throw their fair share of bravado, but they balance such masculine displays with a plentitude of moments showing their fragility, tenderness, and considered morality. Through this, it's fair to say that Dog Soldiers is a film that throws what it means to be masculine into question, pushing towards morality being a truer compass by which to guide oneself.
I know you think it was a piss poor call, you failing selection and all of that, but I've got to say I'm not sorry. The squad would be a lot worse off without you, mate. So like I say, patient.
If you've seen Dog Soldiers, you're probably thinking about that one scene.
You woman. Same old shite.
It's that time of the month.
Claiming the film's critique of hypermasculinity without addressing this almost ridicule of femininity would, of course, be only telling half the story. While this moment may at first play off as entirely crass, especially considering the film was written and directed by a man, a legend, and a maverick, both I and critic Anya Stanley think that there's more going on here. Stanley describes this moment perfectly, explaining this is what takes the exchange from tired trope to clever send-up, much like Spoon's red-blooded chest thumping throughout the narrative. In other words, just as the soldier's masculinity has forever been the target of critique, so is Megan's femininity, both as the love interest which she's first portrayed as, and as the matriarch which she becomes. Both these extremes are villainized through Ryan and Megan. Boyish bravado is parodied through Spoon, while compassionate traits through Cooper's aversion to unnecessary violence, and Wells's acceptance of trauma are quote-unquote normalized. With this, it's evident that Dog Soldiers comes to critique the binary divides we place between the masculine and feminine types, both from society at large and those stereotypes placed onto us through occupation or status. This is the reason that Marshall has Cooper, who both wasn't afraid of confronting the horrors around him or showing compassion, be the only soldier to make it out, with a dog no less, and sword in hand.
Finish the job, shoot the dog.
Shoot it! No! Stop!